As we all know, Woody Woodpecker's Kidzone closed on January 16th.
So we're going to take a look at the history of the area and pay our respects.
As well as being joined by Larry Wyatt to talk about his history with Fievel's Playland.
This is episode 548 of the Unofficial Universal Orlando Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to the show. It is with a sad heart that we gather together to pay our respects to that land that Tracy and I have hardly ever been into, apart from Halloween Horror Nights.
Even though you have kids.
I was going to say, even with kids.
Yes, even though the first time we went, Jade was 5, and we didn't go in there.
You're terrible parents.
Yeah.
Oh, I know that. So joining me to talk about this, I have Chris.
Hello.
Tracy.
Hello, everyone.
And that's it, yeah. Oh, and Michelle.
Oh my God.
I think this is so funny.
He is not funny.
No.
I'm laughing.
No. Hello, Michelle.
Hi, love.
Love.
Yeah.
So yeah, like we always do with these things, we always like to pay our respects to closed attractions. What have we done so far? We've done T2 3D, we've done Jaws, we've done Disaster, Twister. Did I say T2 3D? I feel like there's something else we've missed.
Did we do Beetlejuice?
No, we never
Did you
bothered.
say Barney?
Oh yeah, we did Barney.
Yeah.
That was fun. We might talk a little bit about Barney in this as well. But yeah, for the first half of the show, we're going to go through the history of the land, discuss what was there and stuff, and then our thoughts on it. And then after that, we are going to bring our very special guest, Mr. Larry Wyatt, who was part of the the design team for Fievel's Playland, and talk about his role creating the area. So, Tracy.
Yes. Universal announced the plans to introduce Woody Woodpecker's Kidzone to Universal Studios Florida on May 26, 1998, and said it would feature Woody Woodpecker's Nut House Coaster, Curious George Goes to Town, and Fievel's Playland.
It's hard to think about Universal Studios Florida without that area.
Yeah.
Now, isn't it? Because it's been there ever since we've been going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The area replaced the old Bates Motel set. That was a recreation of the iconic Bates Motel, which was used to film Psycho 4: The Beginning. The Bates Motel opened in 1990 and closed in 1998 to make way for Kidzone.
The area didn't change much over its lifetime, so let's look at what attractions could have been found there depending on the year you visited. First up, an attraction that is to remain after the retheming of the land, and that is Animal Actors on Location, which opened in 1999 as Animal Actors Stage. It changed its name to Animal Actors Live in 2001, changing to Animal Actors on Location in 2006.
And this is
that all seems very unnecessary to me.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same show as well.
Yeah.
I think it was more like because I always thought it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't, but I always thought it was Animal Planet Live at some point, but apparently not.
No, don't remember it being there.
It's the Mandela effect.
I can't
Probably.
even remember the last time we saw this.
With the
I
kids.
saw it about a year ago, I think.
Really,
I thought it was closed, to be honest.
I'm genuinely
Yeah, I did.
surprised that an animal-driven show inside a theme park like Universal is still a thing.
Don't forget these are rescue animals, and they don't make them perform.
Yeah, but even think about Pets at Hoy over at SeaWorld. Even that's not on anymore.
Yeah, but SeaWorld has a tarnish on their name for other reasons.
And I'm pretty sure that a caracal wasn't rescued.
They still have their sea lion and walrus show at SeaWorld.
It's not a show so much anymore. Is it not like they used to be? Because it used to be like Clyde and Seymour. It was like a whole shtick thing. Now it's
No, it is. It's like a high school themed. I just took my travel agent training on it. So, yeah.
We're going to quiz you.
We didn't do that last time.
no.
Yeah, they still do have an animal show.
Yeah, I think.
But what's cool about this one, and it was about a year ago that we sat down because it was hot and I just wanted somewhere to sit for a while. Like Tracy said, it is rescues and they don't force them to do anything. It's all treat driven. So there were several instances where the animals just were not into it and they knew that the trainers knew how to like move on.
Yeah. And let's face it, it's better when things go wrong.
Yeah.
Well, we went to see whatever the Orca show was at SeaWorld when we were there last. And they did this whole thing at the beginning where, they're not playing ball. And we were like, I love this bit of shtick. And it's like, no, they were not playing ball. So we got half a show. And it's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to be fair, I mean, this one's even, from what I remember, isn't it like mostly house animals that you can just buy yourself?
Yeah, cats and dogs and parrots and stuff.
There's a pig somewhere.
I was going to say, there's that gorgeous big fat pot-bellied pig, because I love piggies.
One of the parrots went missing a couple of weeks ago as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
I'm
happens.
surprised it's still there, if I'm honest.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't fit into Universal Studios Florida, if you ask me.
You're correct. I don't think it does either.
It hasn't even changed at all.
They do talk about how they train animals to be in movies.
Yes.
So like that's the whole reason they have the show.
Yeah.
Is to talk about
the show
filming with animals.
Yeah, because the show the parrot dog that flied into the
wind thing. Yeah, but which doesn't fit into what Universal Studios Florida is anymore. It
Not
fit
anymore.
at a point when it was all about making movies, and now it isn't. It doesn't really fit. I wonder how popular it is.
It must still be popular. And what are they going to do with the animals?
I don't know, rehome them.
Can't say what I was going to say.
To SeaWorld.
Don't say that. Bend the bows open.
That's odd, because I was
Oh my god! Wow.
Anyway,
that was terrible.
On,
don't know what's in my head then.
A Day in the Park with Barney is up next. The iconic stage show featuring Barney, the big purple dinosaur, and his friends. We should be way more respectful of this. It opened in 1995 and closed in 2021. You can, of course, go back and hear our tribute to Barney by going back to episode 457. Wow, was it that long ago?
If I listened hard enough, I could still hear his echo tunnel.
Oh, that was the best bit about that show, to be fair. Barney was, of course, replaced by DreamWorks Destination, which, if you haven't done it, was an interactive meet and greet where you could meet DreamWorks characters, of course, because it's in the name.
Really?
Such as Trolls, Kung Fu Panda, Puss in Boots, and King Julian. And I think you'll probably be able to meet all those characters again when this area reopens, because I think that's what it's going to do. And Barney is, of course, now closed. We have talked about Barney in depth.
Just a little bit.
Yes.
And
I don't think
backyard shenanigans.
It was a very interesting show overall, I think.
Universal or
our show?
All of it.
It was big over here, man.
Oh, I know, but it's wrong on so many levels.
Jade was terrified.
They're redoing it. There's a new one coming out, isn't there?
Yeah. That animated one's terrifying looking as well.
Yeah. You need to keep up on the Producers Club. Someone posted it in there the other day.
I do not need to know about new Barney. Nope.
I love you. You love me. Need Jeff Wright on. He does a much better impression than I do.
Oh, I can't sing that way. Oh, my head's in some dark place.
Anyway,
got a new song for that.
We've talked about Barney. It closed ages ago. We've paid our respects.
Oh, disrespect.
I mean, we did.
Yeah.
We did. It was a bit of a mess.
And we finally did the that DreamWorks Destination thing.
Okay.
Before it closed. I mean, you got to have a kid to go there.
Yes, Chris. I think that the place was called Kidzone. I mean, there was a hint there.
No, but I mean, there was like nothing really going on in there. It was really weird attraction where it's just some singing going, and then they stopped to take pictures, and really, it was just a rest stop for us.
It was just trying to make a meet and greet a little bit more than just standing in line, getting your picture taken, and then off you pop.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
It's not aimed at you, Chris, to be fair, so...
Well, everything should be aimed to me. Come on.
Yes.
Startoons. The 80s Rewind was a street show starring Universal's cartoon characters performing 80s hits. This was the third version of this character meet. The first, Startoons, which operated in production central from 1993 to 96, and Universal Studios cartoon characters would briefly sing and dance, followed by them posing for autographs and pictures with park guests. It'd be a bit weird if they just posed by themselves, not with anybody.
Not really.
The Kidzone show opened in 1998. It was rethemed in 2008 to Startoons 80s Rewind.
Yeah.
So what cartoons would have this been?
There's an interesting question. We should have got Michael Mangione on here because I know he worked it. Woody
Universal
Woodpecker.
Studios cartoon characters.
I mean, I'll guarantee you Woody Woodpecker was part of it.
Fievel.
Probably. So what sort of cartoon characters are you looking around like Woody Woodpecker?
It's no one
I have
knew.
no clue.
Well, if I had Hanna-Barbera or Barbera, people would say both to me.
80s rewind. So but I just don't know who would have been Universal Studios cartoons in the 80s.
So going off Startoons International LLC, the Tiny Toons, Taz,
Oh,
McGee and Me,
I love Tiny Toons.
the Animaniacs.
I loved Animaniacs.
Oh, yes.
Whether they were there or not, I don't know.
No, but I still loved them.
Curious George.
I started watching Animaniacs recently, and I was like, wow, there's some adult humor in here
Oh, yes.
that totally went over my head in the 80s.
Were you watching the original or the reboot?
The original.
Okay, so here we go. You're looking at Hanna-Barbera characters, so Fred Flintstone, George Jetson, Scooby-Doo, Yogi Bear, and Boo Boo.
Hey,
Okay.
boo boo.
Smarter than the average bear.
Yeah, those are my cartoons. That's what
Yeah.
I grew up on.
Yeah. Did anyone see this, by the way?
No.
Not me.
Well, I probably did, actually, but I don't remember it.
I just saw a YouTube video on it, and I do not remember seeing
Yeah.
this.
I mean, we'll have been going.
I
We'll have
probably
been
did, but-
twice at that point.
I was afraid to go on everything, so I'm sure my parents took me over there to see it.
But if it's a Kidzone, we wouldn't have seen it because we never went in.
Yeah.
What the hell did we do on those first couple of trips? Because I don't even
I
remember.
know you had a kid. What did you do?
No, not the first couple of times we went. We didn't.
Oh, okay.
It was just us big kids. We didn't even go to the graveyard, did we? Boneyard, whatever it was called.
Idiots.
I'm gutted now. All these things we could have been experienced and talked about on this show, and we just went, I'm an idiot. I don't know
Could
what
have
I'm
been
doing.
there
in
for
a theme
horror
park."
nights and everything.
Oh,
man.
we were there for horror nights.
Did that wrong as well.
Anyway,
Wow.
Oh, Fievel's Playland was a children's playground based on the films An American Tale and An American Tale, Fievel Goes West, and also contained Fievel's water slide, which was exactly what it says it is. The playground featured many set pieces that were aimed mostly at little kids and allowed them to pretend to be the size of mice. This area opened in 92.
yeah, my most experience of Fievel's Playland is going through Halloween Horror Nights and then
Yeah.
briefly walking past it when we rode Woody Woodpecker's Nuthouse Coaster in December. And that's it.
Yeah.
I used to love Fievel's Playland.
I walked Krista up, to play when she was there, when she was 3. But that's the only time.
Strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's from what I can gather and what I've seen, it's very similar in theming, like the idea behind it to, is it Honey, I Shrunk the Playground? Is that what it was
at
called?
Hollywood
At Hollywood
Studios.
Studios? Or Honey, I
Yeah.
Shrunk the Kids Play, whatever it was called. Similar thing. I took a load of pictures of it going to the Monsters house, I want to say, when we were there, me and Raymond, for Horror Nights last year. Because I thought I better take some pictures of this thing, make it prove I have actually been through here.
Yeah.
Apparently the water slide was kind of fun.
And apparently you get very, very wet on it.
Yeah. Adults go down it or went down it all the time.
Yeah.
I wanted to do it this last trip, but it was also like 40
Cold.
degrees.
Yeah.
I mean, it has something that no other water slide has, but we'll wait until our guest comes on to talk about that.
All right.
Water.
Oh, yeah. You gave me the best part of Kidzone. Next up is Curious George Goes to Town. This was an interactive outdoor play area. The playground was essentially a model of the town from the books, complete with a town center surrounded by colorful, cartoonish buildings. This play area has something for children of all ages. As a big kid, I tended to gravitate to the Man in the Big Yellow Hat's ball factory, which has thousands of foam balls that can be thrown and launched at unsuspecting kids. Yes. The area also included an animal show tent that had activities for toddlers and 500-gallon buckets that would periodically dump their contents over anyone near enough to get it. The paved paths of Curious George Goes to Town are marked with George's footprints, which lead visitors from one spot to the next.
Again, my only memory of this is walking through it at Horror Nights when the water isn't turned on and George has a plastic pole up his ass.
Yeah. Yeah. I would just like to point out that 500 gallons of water for a toddler, over one toddler,
I think
it's quite a lot of
I think
water.
when I wrote this, I got it wrong. I think that's outside. The show tent only is the stuff for toddlers. The 500-gallon bucket stuffs are outside.
They'd be mashed.
No, the 500-gallon buckets are in the town outside. We know Michelle likes firing her balls at people.
It was so fun. I'm really sad that this is gone. And Lee, you never went in there.
No, I know.
Why didn't we?
This was an awesome area.
Know.
What the heck?
It should have been part of the Weekender.
It was meant to be, but someone was
It was
too
meant
busy.
to be. Yeah, I couldn't make it over there for my challenge. However, that area was so awesome. It was nice and cool inside, so it was a great place to take a break from the heat. And yeah, it was huge, like huge 2-story area.
You could also intentionally peg kids in the face with a ball.
Yes.
Like get away with it because that's part of the game.
It is. Like parents would look up at you and you're like, eh.
Exactly. It's like, Tracy, how did we not spend hours in there? Like, we'll spend hours squirting unsuspecting people on me ship the olive, like in Popeye, but we won't go and shoot foam balls at kids.
You won't go and play with the big man in yellow hat's balls.
I mean, I don't want to play with his balls.
It was so fun.
This all sounds like Curious George erotic fan fiction.
Erratic, I think you were right the first way.
Erratic fan fiction.
Yeah.
It's just such a, like I say, it wasn't,
That's curious for
again,
long.
even with Jade, the closest I've been is, again, walking through it to go to the monster's house at Horror
Why
Nights.
were our kids not down there, getting pelted in the face by
I
us?
don't know. Jade had been bawling their eyes out. Raymond had had an absolute blast in there.
There's no signage or anything to let you know that this thing exists.
Yeah, I don't
So
even know
unless
where
you're
it
just
is.
over there playing and you happen to go through, because it has like these big plastic, like they have in Halloween Horror Nights that you have to open up to get to go inside. Unless you just venture in there, you really wouldn't know it exists.
Weird.
So it was never busy. There was always just enough kids in there that you could have your own gun and just be pelting people. You didn't have to fight over guns or balls or anything.
I mean, I don't want to fight over anyone's balls, but... Anyway.
It was the best. I'm sad that this is going, to be honest with you.
I mean, they could still leave that there and just re-theme it to something else. Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows? Woody Woodpecker's Nut House coaster is up next, and this family coaster is the shortest coaster I think I have ever been on in my entire life. And I can say that because I rode it about 3 months ago, and it was over in about 10 seconds.
2 seconds, yeah.
So coffee was the right decision.
As I say, I did get one last ride on it during the weekend. There's nothing more embarrassing than stood waiting to get on that ride when the trains are coming in and everyone's chanting, Lee, 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 Lee. Oh my God. Brilliant. But it was fun. I'm glad it was an impromptu ride that everyone's like, come on, we're going to go ride that. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll come. To get one last ride on it. But it opened on March 13th, 1999. It is a Vekoma attraction with check this out. It has a height of 27.9 feet. It's going to give Velocicoaster a run for its money here, by the way. It has a length of 679.2 feet and a top speed of a whopping 21.7
Nope,
miles
it's too
an
much.
hour.
Stop it.
And we're going to find out it lasts a whole 44 seconds. Which will tell me
out.
that it's actually not the shortest coaster I've ever ridden, because I've timed Oblivion at Alton Towers, and that is 20 seconds from start to finish. It's a lot more intense than Woody Woodpecker's Nut House
It's a little
coaster,
higher. I believe it might be 30 foot.
I think it's about 198 feet, but okay. Yeah, it's a kiddie coaster. I think I've ridden it twice.
Yes, we've ridden with Jade.
Yeah,
Raymond
that's
once.
the only thing we've ever ridden, like, that's going away. Well, I say it's going away. I don't think it is, but...
Does it get rethemed?
Well, no, it's not.
Believe it or not, there was a time that Krista was afraid to ride even this ride.
Wow. And you.
Yes.
And you were as well.
Oh, no, I wasn't. And it wasn't even like she was 3. She was still probably like 6 or 7.
Was it the last trip?
No, I finally got her on Mummy this last trip and she loves it.
Yeah,
So
you should have seen her face when I tried to get her on Velocicoaster at the weekend.
Oh, yeah, not happening.
No.
Yeah, it's a coaster. It's a kiddie coaster. It is what it is.
It's a necessary
It's
thing.
kind of
It's
fun
fun
to
enough.
be up.
Yeah.
It is.
Kids have
Gotta
got
have
to
something
be
for the kids to do.
Yeah, and they've got to be introduced to coasters somehow. It's a fun way to do it.
Yeah.
Could do with a bit more shade around it, but
It'll still be there.
yeah.
Kids are people too. They deserve some fun.
Yes.
Just not a Universal. That's what Disney's for.
Yeah.
Not to have fun, just for kids.
Yeah. You drop the kids off there as you go to
I
Universal.
mean, that's a good idea.
Yeah. Right. So, once Shrek 4D closed and work on VillainCon Minion Blast began, Donkey's photo finish, the Shrek Fiona and Donkey meet and greet was relocated to Kidzone, taking over the old Barney store.
It's weird because it wasn't there very long.
It wasn't.
Like,
Mm-mm.
maybe 3 months.
That's what I was going to say. It really wasn't long.
And they were like, oh, we're closing you down now.
So, where's it going now?
I mean,
I know it was kind of pointless to move it.
Yeah.
I assume it will stay there because if that area is going to be DreamWorks, Shrek's DreamWorks, isn't it?
Yeah, but while they're doing all this work, where is it now?
I think they're just milling around down there in the toilets.
Homeless.
I don't know where they are.
The toilets!
It's the swamp. It's the closest thing to the swamp.
It's Central Florida. That is a swamp.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yep.
Yeah, again, we never did that donkey meet and greet.
No.
And we always said we were going to, and we never did.
Like at all? Like
No.
even in the original location?
Never. I don't know why,
We've seen it and we've waved at Fiona there.
but never actually. We've met them, but
Yeah.
we've never actually done
Not
the
donkey.
the donkey thing. I don't know why.
No.
Yeah, that one's a fun one. The new location was awesome. We saw it for the first time right before it closed.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The final attraction in Kidzone, which will remain after the retheme and is currently still open, is Tracy's favorite, the E.T. Adventure.
Woo!
PB Mallard Adventure.
I'm starting to have a real appreciation for ET. I actually really like it now.
I do too.
So do I.
Uh,
It's the OG.
Tracy, you love the photo shoot, don't you?
Saw your face.
That was the best picture ever.
Oh, come on. Of course I had to ham that up. If I'd smiled, there was something wrong. There was a whole... there was about 6 or 7 pictures. I had all different poses. Great.
That was great.
The death... I didn't actually get to see it. I did a death glare at E.T. It was fantastic.
Brian
I mean,
tried to
E.T.
get...
could use some love, but it needs
Yeah,
to stay.
Could it really? I think as far as an attraction that old, it doesn't look rough or anything. Men in Black needs it a damn sight more.
Yeah.
It needs a good dusting, and it needs some WD-40 because all I hear half the ride is the squeaking of the wheels on the truck above me.
I feel like that just started recently. So we
Did
ride
it?
it every single time. Don't really have that, but this last time we rode it, when we're coming down into the Green Planet, like you just hear like that
Yeah,
all
yeah.
the way in. I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
Just throw a little bit of lube on there.
that's what she said.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen ET in probably 30 years.
Yeah, me neither.
Wow. Huh.
Great. The other elements of Kidzone that will remain and aren't part of current construction are Kidzone Pizza Company, which we assume will get a new name, E.T.'s Toy Closet, and SpongeBob Store Pants.
I still wish they'd have jumped on this when SpongeBob was at the top of its game and done a whole Bikini Bottom area because it could have been stunning.
It still could be stunning. That cartoon is still
I think it's like a forever
crazy
thing.
popular.
Yeah.
Make like a SpongeBob dark ride.
It'd be awesome.
Ah,
We used to
Yeah.
have a SpongeBob 3D,
Oh, I
like a
loved
4D
it.
theater show at our local theme park, and it was pretty awesome,
It
to
was
be fair.
fantastic.
It was really good. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what they call Kidzone Pizza Company, because they've got to change it.
DreamWorks Pizza Company.
I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
Or maybe that's where the noodle place is going. Oh, you weren't with us last week, were you? When we were talking, or 2 weeks ago when we were talking about it with Seth. So that interactive, there's been patents filed for like an interactive, is it Ping? What's Kung Fu Panda's dad called?
Ping.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like an interactive noodle bar thing with that.
I just want an actual noodle bar, please.
Yeah, I know, you do.
I love noodles.
Yeah, interesting to talk about an area that we're trying to pay our respects to when none of us have spent an awful lot of time in there.
nope.
But it will be interesting to see what they replace it with. I mean, obviously it's going to be DreamWorks, but the main DreamWorks that everyone wants is going into Epic Universe. So it'll be interesting to see what crap we get in here. And I've said I'd love something along the lines of the Kung Fu Panda Land of Awesomeness that's in Beijing, because that looks amazing.
It's just not a very popular movie over here. I don't
expectations.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't expect it to be. I think there's going to be a lot of trolls. I think there's going to be some Kung Fu Panda stuff. I honestly, Shrek, I think there'll be Shrek stuff in there. It's weird because if you look at any construction photos that have been posted from like over the walls, they've gutted that whole front section.
Yeah.
Other than the roller coaster. Oh, sorry, I did a slip there. The roller coaster. I might be trolling you. Anyway, right. We are going to take a quick break and then we'll be joined by our guest to talk about Fievel's Playland.
Man, we need a vacation.
Oh, I got this.
Whoa, that's awesome. But I was thinking something a little more adventurous.
Okay, how about this?
Yes!
And how about some relaxation from Mama?
Oh, perfect. How did you do that?
Easy. PortKey Vacations.
For your next vacation, let PortKey Vacations take away all the guesswork and stress of planning. From air and hotel to theme park tickets and everything else in between, they've got you covered. Just visit PortKeyVacations.com and touch the PortKey to get started with your free, no-obligation quote request. With just one touch, and PortKey Vacations will magically take you wherever you want to go.
Hey everyone, welcome back. We are very honoured to be joined by theme entertainment creator Larry Wyatt. Hi Larry, thanks for taking time to come and speak to us.
Thank you, Lee. Thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Like we were talking about before we added you on that whenever an attraction closes at Universal, we tend to do one of these episodes and talk about it. And I always like to get someone who worked on it at some point, and it's difficult trying to get hold of people when you're talking about something that was built 30 years ago. So, yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time.
Great. Pleasure to do so.
Yeah, now, Larry, before we get talking about your work on Kidzone, could you give us a brief history of yourself and how you got into themed entertainment and how it was you came to work on Fievel's Playland?
Well, it's hard to make it brief because I've been at this for so long. But like I think most everybody that I encounter in this industry, everybody comes into it in sort of weird, unpredictable ways.
Yes.
And I was no different. I was working as an exhibit designer in Cincinnati, and I became aware of King's Productions at Kings Island. And King's Productions was the design, sort of creative show production arm of King's Entertainment, which was the parks Kings Island, Kings Dominion, Carowinds, those parks. And so they had an opening, and I applied, and I was hired as a designer. And I was immediately thrown into what eventually became Canada's Wonderland in Toronto.
Okay.
And so I had this incredible opportunity to work with an operating company and work with a team to design an entire theme park from scratch to opening day.
Wow.
Which was an incredible experience. And through that process, we came to know a group out of Toronto who eventually became FOREC. And little known fact, almost nobody knows about this, but I was one of the founding members of FOREC Design based in Toronto back in the day. And so we eventually did a lot of the planning work and design work for Universal Studios Florida, the original park opening. And I got to know Mark Woodbury and Barry Upson and Bob Ward and all those early team members that opened the original Orlando park. And then eventually I sort of left FOREC, opened my own design company there in Cincinnati, and I was invited by Keith James, who was vice president of Universal Creative in Orlando, to submit a proposal to work on this new playground. We'd had some experience in playground design And so they gave us a shot. We won the bid. And so that was it. That's the long and short story.
Cool. Like you say, it is interesting to talk to people how they get into this, and exactly like you said, people come at it from. It's like it's rarely one of those jobs that somebody goes into with their eyes wide open. They kind of fall into it. I think is what I've found talking to a lot of people from that perspective.
Yeah, certainly back then. I mean, now there are university programs and themed entertainment, which has been hugely successful to the industry. But yeah, you come in from, you might be an architect or a scenic designer or a graphic designer or, a landscape architect. It's somehow you just come from all these different angles. So.
Yeah, for definite. Now, Larry, I know we've already talked about this. It has been a long time since you worked on Fievel's Playland, but can drag the recesses of your memory and tell our listeners what it was that Universal came to you with the challenge for Fievel's Playland?
Well, you may be aware of Disney had done this outrageous giant-scaled playground called with Honey, I Shrunk the Kids movie. And it was pretty good. It actually didn't have a lot of play value, honestly, but it was completely unique. Nobody had ever seen anything like it before, and it was very popular. And so Universal they had this IP, Fievel, which, it seemed like an automatic. You become the size of a mouse, and you create all these giant things as if you're the size of a mouse. And they felt this giant scale play zone could be really popular. And of course it was a Spielberg IP and he's one of the creative leads with Universal from the very beginning. So it was really important to them to represent that IP in the strongest possible way, but also just to blow the doors off Disney. I mean, that's what Universal has always tended to do. And so they always are raising the bar at almost everything they do. So they wanted an absolutely outrageous giant scale play zone that would be an experience for the ages. So that was a task, and we only had 18,000, I think, or just under a half acre to do it in. So it was a pretty challenging task, but we took it on and persevered.
So I'm trying to think what will have been, so around Fievel's Playland at the time, was Curious George Goes to Town, was that already open at that point?
No, this was the first, believe it or not, this was the very first of all. It was before Woody's Coaster.
Okay.
It was the only thing really just past Fievel's was still the path to Hard Rock Cafe back in the day.
And then Bates Motel, was that still there at that point?
Yeah, the Bates Motel was even still there. That's right. So this was the first. And another, well, there's sort of like two more things I should probably say is Universal was challenged at that time. They had very few attractions for young kids.
Yeah.
And so this had to perform and accommodate a lot of demand for younger children. They just weren't getting families with smaller children. And so it was really important that they hit that demographic with something really strong. And so the other part of it was capacity. I mean, in their parlance, everything sort of has to be justified, their expenditures, by throughput and capacity. And so every play element and every element in there had to have some form of throughput. And so so that they could justify this can handle so many people an hour, right? And so that was kind of a challenge for a play zone, not like a dark ride or a coaster, to try to figure out how you can calculate throughput on something like this, which is basically a free roaming play space.
Yeah, which is like, how do you do that? I don't really, because an attraction, how many people you're loading per car and stuff like that. Whereas a play zone with kids, it's like the kids are going to do what they want. They're not going to adhere to like a line, are they? It's weird.
How long do you want to play in here?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we had some experience with play and exhibits. So it was more like how you handle those kinds of visitor attractions. So we sort of created our own metrics with Universal to figure that out. And actually what happened after it opened, it was very close to right on target of about a little over 2,000 an hour, I think, was what our goal was. I honestly don't remember, but it was kind of in that neighborhood. And it worked out. They actually had people counting people coming in and coming out, and it was pretty close on target. I was really happy to hear that. Somebody told me about that about a year later.
Yeah, for definite.
Yeah. Again, I know we're asking a lot for you to remember something that was 30 years ago, but can you tell us about the actual design process, like what you guys came up with and any things that were put forward that never made it into the land?
Well, I think as we talked before, the film Fievel Goes West, that was the second installment of the Fievel franchise, and the last, I guess.
Yeah.
But that film hadn't been released yet when we started working on the project. So we were looking at storyboards, animatics, short, little, brief, sketchy, animation segments to look at backgrounds, props, things like that they were putting into the film. And so we were literally working from the sketches that the animators and the artists were using on the film. So it's really fantastic. So that was the first time we'd ever done that before. And then it was difficult to figure out how to put all this together into something that really made sense. And so the very beginning of the film, if anyone ever remembers seeing this film, is the mice. They leave New York, but they escape in sardine cans down the sewers to get into a river to start their travel west. And so we said, oh, okay, that's the thing. We got to have some kind of a water slide or something. And so that Whitewater had this new wet, dry slide at the time where you get in. It's the slide. It's a centerpiece of the attraction.
Yeah.
And so that centerpiece, that focal point, kind of pulled everything together. And honestly, there's very little that we came up with that we did not jam into that little, less than a half acre. It was amazing. It was that probably was one of the biggest challenges of how to put that Swiss clock together in such a compact space. And it anyway, it all worked out, and that was just part of the fun challenge of making this thing successful.
I will say that because when I heard about you making this or working on this prior to the movie coming out, and having been a big fan of American Tail and Fievel at that time, I was a kid watching these at that time. I loved Fievel Goes West as one of my favorite movies growing up. Going through that land as a kid, because I've been going, my parents have been taking me since I was little. It did such a great job at kind of putting that together with the movie. And we even, my wife and I went through there again, right before they closed it down recently, just to walk through everything and kind of, refresh ourselves with the memories that we had of that. And it's just, it's incredible how well that came through, even without having seen the movie. When you guys were working on that. So that's a testament to, the work you guys put in just on storyboards alone.
Yeah. Wow, Chris, I appreciate that. No, it really was something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. The water slide has become, I would say, more a hit with adults than kids. We actually hosted an event in the parks in December, and I know there was a group of about 6 or 7 grown adults that spent a lot of time on that water slide getting absolutely drenched.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was actually technically a bit of a problem. That is the smallest version of that slide that Whitewater had ever done, and we had a lot of difficulty jamming it into the site. They had to shorten the run out quite a bit and actually slope it uphill in order to squeeze the attraction down to fit it onto the site. Okay. So, nothing's easy.
No, I mean, Universal are known. I mean, obviously, most of the stuff's subcontracted, but it's one of the things we talk about a lot is how good they are working with whatever design group they're working with at the time to cram these what feel like huge areas into tiny little areas. I mean, you look specifically over something like Volcano Bay at the moment, that when you're in there, it feels huge, and yet the plot of land that it's on isn't actually that big.
Yeah. No, I think, it was, I mean, if you're familiar with it, you can imagine back in the day when, you don't have the benefits of 3D modeling and 3D design. Everything was designed, orthographically and with built models and illustrations and that sort of thing is so complicated. But to build it was even more complicated because every single piece is a custom scenic thing. There's no architecture that this thing hangs on. I mean, there's a basic steel framework, but everything is scenic. And to try to put together the right construction, scenic design team that would make all that work and fit together and assemble it on such a small site that was no mean feat. That was an incredible accomplishment for Universal.
Yeah, it's like from us as fans' perspective, that behind the scenes theme park stuff, it blows your mind because you just can't even comprehend. Like the fact that even you just saying there that you'd never nowadays of a rule you would be building attraction having seen the movie or whatever the IP is based off, but not even having to get and sit down and watch that movie. Just going off storyboards is like, okay, it's crazy.
That, and also, I mean, going far back as old as this attraction is or was, not having those models that you can run through. I feel like nowadays you can kind of do iterations of something over and over and over again through a model much easier than what you would have to do back then, where you're just drawing things out by hand.
Oh yeah, I mean, we did the complete construction documents. They were stamped and sealed and approved locally and all of that. And so the construction documents were incredibly complicated. And at the end of the design process, I mean, we did several little study models and 3D models so we could design it. But we did this incredible, beautiful art director's model so that everybody could just see what the hell this thing really was and look at it from every angle. And it turns out it was incredibly helpful for the lighting designers because they just could not figure out how to light this thing until they saw the model. So we did it with physical models as opposed to digital.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there were all kinds of conflicts of structure and electrical systems and everything else that they just sort of discovered on site during construction. But again, I mean, it's just it's quite an accomplishment to actually build it. And I will say it is exactly what was designed. I mean, This is one of the few times in my career what we designed was exactly reproduced in real life without any without losing anything.
Wow.
That's quite an
Impressive.
accomplishment. Because from our experience, interviewing other people, it's you have your blue sky and then you have your actual reality that comes out. So that's interesting to hear. You got it all through.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's definitely something to be said about physical models. I know a friend of ours who, funny coincidence, we ended up kind of introducing him to Russ Dagan, and he now, I don't know whether he still does, but he was making models for Universal, and he did like the model for the design for Aventura Hotel, and it was absolutely gorgeous. I know the Chris, you've seen the Hagrid's model in the Legacy store. I love a physical model like that. I see those models and I think I would love to have them on a shelf at home.
I'll take that.
Universal was a big believer in full-blown, they're expensive, beautiful art directors level, which is literally the final product, just at a smaller scale. And so they did that from the very beginning.
That's cool. And I know, again, we talked briefly in our emails that the water slide has an elevator. I'm sure you said it was like one of a kind as well, wasn't it?
Well, it was really important for Universal to let this be fully accessible. I mean, that was back in the day when, you may recall, a lot of parks were dealing with the ADA requirements, accessibility, and having to redesign queues and things of that sort. And so they wanted to be able to say that every single element in this new attraction was ADA accessible. And so obviously the main attraction, the water slide, was going to have to be accessible. And how do you get, 35 feet in the air with a wheelchair? So, obviously it's an elevator. And I think it certainly was the first time, I'm sure somebody else has done it, but that there were an elevator access to a water slide. But that's what they did.
That's cool, though. I mean, that again, going back that far as well. I mean, it's such a big deal now. But then going back that far to them even having to think about it right back then, I think is a testament to how forward-thinking Universal were.
Right. No, that's true. It was one of the early attractions that from the very beginning, and as I say, it was very important that every single element. And so we had a specialty consultant, an ADA requirements consultant on every element, and all these things, they're all custom, right? Nothing here is standard, so everything had to be some sort of custom accessible solution to every single element. So it was just one of those little challenges we had.
And that's to say, going off the back of that, how much extra work does that add to building a Playland for kids, having to sort of think about all that ASTM and the ADA requirements and stuff? Is it a real headache, or is it just part and parcel of the job?
No, I mean, as I said at the top, we had some experience in playground design, and so we were familiar with ASTM and CPSC and those sort of construction standards. And an ADA was a big deal also with playgrounds in the early days. So we were familiar with the requirements, but we had, from the very beginning, we had two specialists. One was a certified playground safety specialist. The other was an ADA certified specialist. And if you design those things in from the very beginning, you know what the challenges are, and you think it through from the beginning, it's not that big a deal. What is a big deal is if you get halfway through or even further,
yes,
and you have to adapt everything or change design to accommodate those requirements, then that becomes a problem. But it was fine. And then when the park opened, both the ADA and our certified playground specialist inspected the site, and with a few minor little tweaks here and there, everything passed without a problem. And that was important also. That was a requirement that Universal gave us at the beginning, that when it opened, before it opened, that it had to pass these certifications.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, it shows the attention to detail that we've seen from Universal over the years of really going that extra mile, for sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Now, it sounds like it to me, but overall, were you happy with the final product?
Oh, heavens, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it sounds like it. We have to ask you that. And what do you think has allowed the whole area to survive as long as it did?
Well, Chris, I mean, you said it at the beginning, what your experience was when you first saw it. It is such an immersive, exciting space. I think every kid, if you're not familiar with Fievel or anything else, it is such an incredible imagination, generator for kids, for role playing, whatever. And it's just like a big fun house. It's like if you took all your toys in your toy closet and suddenly they're giant size and you can play with them. And so I think it catches the imagination of kids. It delivers on activity. There's so much to do in there. And then, so I think from a design standpoint, I'm really pleased with how the design, delivered all of that. But also, you got to hand it to Universal. I mean, none of those things are easy to maintain. Play spaces are notorious for just getting ripped to pieces and destroyed and worn and broken. I mean, I won't even mention the park, but I've been to some of a very major park in another country where I was amazed at how some of the play elements were actually broken and not operating. And this was a company that certainly has the financial resources to take care of those things. It's difficult. It's very difficult to keep those things. And I've always just been so pleased that every time I've been there, I always wander over and see how it's doing. And they've just done an incredible job to keep it maintained. And so, parents know that it's safe. Their kids have a great time. It's remained popular. I'm hoping whatever gets replaced, it gets replaced with, is as engaging as that has been.
Yeah. I think that's a great response to that. Just because as far as outdated as that IP is, and I say that in the most positive way possible because I am a Fievel fan, that land never felt old.
No.
Right.
And even to the point, like I said, we were there the weekend it closed down before they walled off everything. And we walked through everything in there because I was taking a bunch of videos, a bunch of photos. I just wanted to have as much, memory and recollection of this that I could for the future. It still felt fresh. Like for being a giant attraction that has tons of kids rummaging around, literally punching, kicking, whatever through it, right? It still felt very fresh. It did not feel old at all to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a testament to Universal, how they took care. It was clearly that whole area has been important to them to deliver on that younger demographic.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they gave it a lot of attention just because that's the only area in the park that's really geared toward that demo.
That's a very good point, actually. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like a terrible parent because the first time we took our kids was in 2009 and our youngest was 5 and we never set... I'm sorry, Larry, I really am. We never set foot in Kidzone at all and I feel like a terrible parent.
Oh, shame on you.
I know, it's terrible.
30 lashes. 30 lashes.
The only time I ever seemed to set foot in that area is during Halloween Horror Nights, to be fair, but we spent a bit of time in it when we were over last year. And yeah, it's a shame to see it go. It's another thing at Universal Studios Florida that's changed, and it's like you look at that park now, and there's so much of it has changed since the first time we came over to Orlando was 2004, and it's a very different park than it was back then, and it's not that long a time really.
Yeah.
But
again, testament to being there for 30 years is something.
Yes,
yeah.
It's a huge testament, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a bit of time before we let you go, Larry. And I know you mentioned to me that you also worked on a day in the park with Barney. So if you could just briefly, because we've that closed a while back now, kind of give us a quick run through of what the process of putting that together was, please.
Well, it's interesting. It was pretty soon after Fievel's was opened, we got another invitation to come down and look at something else. And they had been talking to, gosh, now I'm blanking on her name, Leach, the owner of the IP Barney. And they wanted to do another kind of like child's attraction, but for really small kids. I mean, if you know Barney the Purple Dinosaur, Barney appeals to the 3-4-year-old, the toddler and up.
Yeah.
And so we literally started brainstorming with her and Universal Creative, their live entertainment group, because the core of that attraction was a live show with Barney, the big dinosaur in the round and all that. And so we created, there was no film or anything like that to base it on. It literally was just brainstorming and shredding the ideas of Cheryl Leach.
Yes.
Of what would be an experience that would express that IP for in her mind. And so we created with a day in the, she felt like nature and a park-like setting with a lot of plants and landscaping, and there was a play zone inside as well with a retail store, and then the core attraction that had the giant Barney character that appears out of the stage from a lift down below in the most magical moment you can imagine. And it's funny. I mean, I was, my kids were much older than for Barney, and a lot of adults and parents, sort of chuckle at Barney the dinosaur. But when you see the looks on those children's faces when Barney magically appears,
I can imagine.
You get it.
Yeah.
And it was. So I just felt. I mean, we didn't do. I think we took that design through schematic only. But that was largely a Universal Creative, their live entertainment production, and it was just spectacular. I mean, it absolutely delivered what was necessary, and it only closed at the beginning of COVID, so it's been there a long time as well.
Yeah, I mean, we never saw the show, but I know we went into the play area of Barney's backyard, and it's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of we've done a lot of that stuff in the past, but yeah, the play zone was kind of fun and cool, but it was small. But the show itself, I mean, I don't know, Chris, did you see it? Have you seen it?
Yes, I saw it more times than I'd like to say, just because at that time my sister was about 3 years old and she was the biggest Barney. I mean, Barney was a phenomenon over here in the States. And so every time we go to the park, my parents would take her and I with my parents. So we'd all see the Barney show. So I saw it plenty of times and it was slammed. It was packed. And yes, you're right. The kids would go absolutely wild when Barney came out. So you are not lying.
Well, it was amazing. Anyway, that was fun. It was fun to be part of that.
Yeah, I love the shows that Universal put on. There isn't anywhere near enough of them now, and it does sadden me to see a lot of those, especially that type of stage show where you can go in and take a weight off your feet, get some AC, and just kind of chill out for 20 minutes or so, because a lot of the shows that they're doing in the parks now are kind of those out in the open sort of stand-up things like the stuff in Diagon Alley and Hogsmeade specifically. You've only really got Animal Actors, the horror makeup show, which I adore, and the Born Stuntacular, which, to be fair, is amazing.
Right.
But yeah, theme parks tend to be going away from shows a little bit, which is sad because I do like them a lot.
Yeah, that's too bad. When I first started working for King's Productions, we had several stage shows, and I remember even as a parent with little kids, we loved going to those stage shows. They're high quality Broadway style sort of variety shows and incredibly entertaining. They pack those theaters with parents and kids every single show, and it just became expensive to operate, I think. Yeah. I don't think they're any less popular with the audience. I just think the sort of financial return maybe is a little more challenging, but I do think and I hope that it's something that comes back to regional parks as well as the majors, because I think it's such an important part of entertainment. I'm a big believer in live entertainment.
Agreed.
Doing that, providing that sort of tactile, personal experience that most people don't go to a Broadway show or a musical, and a lot of the regional parks used to deliver that form of entertainment. I think it's greatly missed. I think it's a missed opportunity, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, you only have to look at something like Waterworld out in Universal Studios Hollywood, that no one cares about that IP, and yet it's one of the most popular theme park shows in the world, even to the point that they went and put it in Beijing.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know from the rumours we've heard, I think we're getting a couple of shows at Epic Universe. A friend of ours worked on the Sing It show over at Universal Beijing as well, and that looks really, really good. We've watched some YouTube videos of that. So I think it's on Universal's radar to start putting those types of shows back in the game, which is good because theme parks need those areas. Otherwise, people get burnt out too quickly, especially if you've got kids with you.
Right.
Yeah. Well, Larry, thank you so much for joining us. It will be interesting to see what the Kidzone replacement will be, but we will be keeping a close eye on it. Now, in the meantime, Larry, could you please let everyone know where they can find out more about you and your portfolio and what you may have coming in the future?
Well, I no longer have a design office. I am now Vice President of Planning and Development for Paramount. Paramount Pictures, and we're working on. I've been working on with our team in Hollywood on several projects worldwide for Paramount, and just keep tuned to the news releases. There's lots of exciting stuff, and I will say that every single project that we're working on has multiple live shows where, I'm not the only one who believes in live entertainment. And so that's something we think that, our parks and our projects are going to take advantage of is the lack of that in most parks. But a lot of our IPs just adapt themselves so well to a live experience or combined live and media, like the Born Spectacular, those kinds of things we really believe strongly in. So just keep track of your news feed on everything related to Paramount internationally.
Yeah, well, I'm sure there's been plans for. Isn't there something getting built in London from Paramount?
That project has stalled.
Aw.
I can't really say much more about it, but we have released a project in Bali.
Okay.
Has been released. It's moving along quite nicely. We also have a couple of projects in China that I can't talk about.
Of course.
But we do have projects. Everybody has projects going on in
Yes.
Asia. And then we have several Nickelodeon lands that are, some are located in Parque Reunidas parks, other parks. So a lot of what we're doing is planting our IPs in other parks and other locations as standalone destination location-based entertainment. So we've got a lot of irons in the fire.
Very interesting. Yeah, themed entertainment is huge right now, and it's good to see, to be fair, because it keeps everybody on their toes, and at the end of the day, we're the ones that benefit from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's it for another show. Of course, another Universal Studios Florida attraction has said bye-bye. We hope you enjoyed this nostalgic tribute to the area, but for now, we're going to end the show, as we always do with a Universal Is, and Larry has been kindly offered to supply this week's. But don't forget, if you want to get involved, all you got to do is let us know what you think Universal is in 3 words or less, and send them to podcast@uuopodcast.com. But for this week, Larry, it is over to you to let us know what you think Universal is.
Well, I'm going to cheat.
I know.
Always raise the bar, and I combined the bar with an apostrophe, so it's technically one word. Always raise the bar. That's what I really believe Universal has always done since from the very first project in Orlando. Everything they endeavor is just keeps pushing everybody else to try to keep up. So I really appreciate that about Universal.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
That was another episode of the Unofficial Universal Orlando Podcast, the best and only podcast about Universal Orlando on the island. Check us out on social media on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Pinterest. Just search UUO Podcast. For all the podcasts, news, and articles, check out our blog at uuopodcast.com. Contact us at podcast@uuopodcast.com. Join the Producers Club by emailing us at uuopproducers@gmail.com. Listen and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and everywhere else podcasts are found. Check out our friends, the Theme Park Duo, for all your other theme park news, and email Michelle at portkeyvacations.net to book your next trip. So until next time, this is Amity 6, call off the Marines, we're coming home.